Greetings, my name is Kai Bergman with BIG Architects, and I would like to tell you the kind of creation of this project, because it actually is the first time in our office where one project begat another project. So by actually working with the company Audemars Piguet, which is a watchmaker still privately owned in a family, in the Valley du Joux, which is just outside of Geneva, where in the valley a whole host of watchmakers have made their home. We have to go all the way back to the 1550s when John Calvin brought Calvinism to Switzerland, which was really this idea of sort of a reaction to the kind of decorative and almost kind of expressive kind of tendency of the royal courts, where he was actually saying that we should actually get away with all of the extra kind of expression, and he banned jewelerists or jewelry makers from the court at that time. However, he made an exception for timepieces because time was practical. So the jewelers went from making jewelry to making watches, which gave birth to the entire watch industry in Switzerland. The valley is just north of Geneva and Lake Léman. So this area is a really beautiful, tender valley that also has a sort of cross-country and ski pass. This is the house that actually the Audemars Piguet, two gentlemen by the names of Audemars and Piguet, started their watchmaking kind of industry. And it was very homely at first. They, of course, became quite successful and added on to that home. And it became really a centerpiece of that industry. Even that industry, even today, has not changed very much in terms of like how to make those timepieces. We were and won a competition to create a watchmaking museum behind that same home and facility. This was a competition to basically give a home to the creation of these incredible timepieces. And our museum was inspired by just how the watch is actually sort of made up of springs and under sort of tension and compression. So we actually have a design where the actual ceiling, the roof, is entirely held up by the curved glass that you see here. So this is a project that we have been designing and making over the last 5 years. It's just finishing, and what happened while we were designing this, they simply said, oh my God, if all of these people start coming to this museum, we don't have a single place for them to stay. The entire valley is not one that has a lot of sort of hotel near it. So just as you have the valley sort of known for its watchmaking, it also is known for its winter sports. And there was this idea that if we have all of these people coming, why not actually build a hotel to house them? So what you see here is right along the watchmaker's path. This is the same path that was taken over the centuries to take these timepieces to the courts of the Royal Court in Geneva. We've built a hotel of 50 rooms, taking advantage of this kind of culture that you have there, so that the hotel is actually a ski-in, ski-out hotel, just as the sort of cross-country runs and competitions are actually also running the same path as the watchmaker's path. The idea of actually really a typical hotel program is, of course, having the reception at the base, sort of a restaurant, sauna facilities, and then having a stack of rooms. That building would have been kind of imposing with the 50 rooms in this small little town. So one way in which we could sort of bring that mass down is to actually allow the building to sort of follow the hillside. That gives us a 6% slope, which is the slope necessary to sort of ski down. The rooms themselves are modules that are stacked all along and have the view out towards the valley with a corridor that is happening on the inside. In between these row of rooms, you have programs such as the bar, the brasserie, and the sort of amenity spaces. All of those amenity spaces have the ability to sort of come out onto the terrace of the outside. So then on the roof at the very, very top, we also have an array of solar panels because they are wanting to have a very low energy footprint. So the materials are also inspired by the museum that is just adjacent. We have a green roof, as in the museum, the glass and glazing, and then a heavy parking garage and base of the building. You can see here how it sort of fits into both the landscape and into the scale and size of this site. So if we look at where we are inspired by this ability of sort of really enjoying the four seasons. We have a variety of different areas on the site. There's, of course, the community itself and providing some services that the community can also enjoy. And we look at we set the building back, if you can see here, so that there's actually a drop-off zone. That drop-off zone is inspired by the kind of glacial paths that you see and how the whole lake system and how these valleys have actually been created, so that the drop-off zone is actually the same kind of glacial movement and allowing you to sort of move past these landscape ridges that are happening there. That's also to kind of give a buffer between the hotel and the city as well. Then if you go a little further, you can see that there is a path that is there, and then the green roof. That path also provides a sort of enough distance from the hotel rooms themselves for that level of privacy. Another image of people walking along the watchmaker's path. And if we delve a little bit deeper into the facade, you can see here that we have on the ends, we have these sort of wooden boxes. This is the arrival facade. And then if I go into the sort of idea of the interiors, so we've been the architect, we've done the interiors, and we're also the landscape architects. This is an idea for us to sort of bring in a big leap, landscape, engineering, architecture, and products into our projects. You can see the breakup of the sort of arrival with reception, the brasserie, a fine dining restaurant, then lower into the spas. Here you see the depth of the corridors and the openings to the outside. We have two elevators that are at the center of the building right upon arrival. And different rooms. There are 4 different room types. Here you can see a plan drawing. And we are inspired by a sort of a small palette of materials, both using kind of historic furniture and the kind of leather. Leather is used in the process of making the watches. We're also inspired by the loops. The doorways into the rooms have a little looking hole that is the same as the loop that you look at when you look into the watch. And we have exposed fasteners. We're looking at sort of the toolkit that the watchmakers use as a kind of inspiration for these different surfaces. The master suite down to a double, that allows us to sort of provide different room types and take advantage of these different double height spaces between the different floors. You can see here a couple of, so we have from 18 square meters up until about 60 square meters. This is the junior suite, which is around 45 square meters. And then the master suite. The bathroom is a dark tile. And as we move from the bathroom, I'll show you just a few of the amenity spaces, the spa, with its massage room and sauna. This is the dining. And I will wrap it up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're bang on time. Well done. Thank you. That's really interesting. I really like the idea of this building as a sort of topography. And the idea of being able to sort of ski in and out is rather delightful. I've just got a couple of questions. Could you just say more about how the sort of the ramp skiing in, skiing out works?
Sure. So it's not providing access from every room out.
No, I can see that, yeah.
You move to the center portion, and from every center is a direct exit onto that ramp.
So you take your skis from your room or whatever, and you clomp to the exits, and then you launch yourself down the ramp.
There are also areas on the very ends where you can see that those amenity spaces are actually opening onto the terraces.
Yeah.
So there are about, I think in total, there are about 8 spaces or 8 places in which you can have direct access.
And can you get in from you can get in from the landscape, I take it?
Yes.
You can just sort of drift in from so could anybody do that, theoretically? People who don't live in so it's sort of publicly accessible?
The watchmaker's path is actually on a kind of registry of hikes. So you have a lot of people actually coming to this valley to take hikes in the summer and then to go cross-country skiing in the winter.
Yeah, so that's going to be so publicly accessible. And,
yes.
Yeah, and that's not a problem for you, that being a luxury hotel, you don't want any old Tom, Dick or Harry sort of going through there.
I think the town sees this as actually something that can bring the townspeople and the general public together. At the moment, people venture here, but there is nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
So this is actually, in some ways, an experiment for the town to actually engage with the public. And they've also decided, we added program that wasn't in the museum before, so that there also are a kind of shops, retail opportunities that are now integrated into the museum. So it has had a kind of back and forth effort on the entire project.
Okay. I've talked too much. Maybe other people have questions?
Sure.
Sorry. Christine, sorry, shit.
Right, sorry. Now I've got my name remembered, that's... thank you very much for the presentation. It was really, really interesting. You talk quite a lot about how the building is sensitive to the landscape, and the fact that it's quite a large building, and how you step it down in order to sort of ameliorate the scale. You talk about references to the landscape. Do you actually physically bring any of the landscape into the building at all?
I think the way that we bring the landscape in is by the materiality. So the woods that we've chosen are woods that are locally available. I do love the biophilic idea of bringing vegetation indoors, and we do have many projects that do that. In this case, I think space was of a premium, and so even pushing the building back to create the drop-off plaza really impacted us, because suddenly we were trying to get a lot of program into an even denser amount of space. But I think we tried to sort of balance the needs of the program with then also not losing a generosity within the spaces that we're actually creating. So
I've got sort of 2 other questions.
Sure.
One of them is to do with a sort of larger scale. I mean, you talk about the relationship to the landscape, but what about the relationship to the rest of, if you like, the sort of the architecture actually within that area? So a lot of it is to do with, reference to nature, but do you feel that there's any importance in referencing the buildings at a larger scale?
If you're asking sort of a historical kind of referencing,
yeah.
I think that I believe that we're celebrating actually the local building traditions. So the carpenters that are involved in this project and the modules that they're creating is something that actually this region really needs. And they're looking for how their children are actually going to stay in that area, because they don't have the same interest of like continuing the watchmaking kind of tradition. So in a way, I think we're celebrating the kind of craftsmanship in a different way. We're not building historical representations, but it's very much a locally created product or a locally created project.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Karen, would you like to?
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. You started off with this watch, and
Yes.
I got so excited. And then you showed this incredible museum, which just really architecturally is different. And then we come to this, and it's the same. Something is different, but I really want to encourage you to get that same magic that you've got in that museum into this building. And I think it's got to do with scale and the way it relates in section to the landscape. And I think the previous speaker also asked that question. But I think it's got enormous potential. Thank you for your presentation.
You bet.
Well, first, a simple question. Did I understand right that the bedrooms are prefabricated and brought there, or are they built there?
So the shell is prefabricated. Some of the furnishings inside are prefabricated. They're assembled then on the site.
Okay. It triggered in the back of my mind a very long ago scheme. Farrell and Grimshaw did a circular student international hall of residence on the south end of Regent's Park. And the ramp went up the outside, and it had the rooms in segments like a cake.
Yep.
Going up. And it was all to do with the interface of the horizontal planes with the ramp. Here, your interface is expressed absolutely clearly. You can see it stepping up the facade, and it finds its expression on the arrival side, on the other side of the building, and it finds its expression internally. So the junction between what's prefabricated and what is actually made on site becomes very interesting to me. Can you just talk us through why you expressed externally and internally and on the other side this horizontality in what is essentially a flowing ramping?
Yes. So for us, actually, we are trying to celebrate the modularity by stepping, and we don't want to hide the fact that this is actually a kind of pre-manufactured process. We believe the way that the watches are actually made are often open-faced, so that you actually see the gears, you see the springs and all of the action. For us, this is a way architecturally that we're actually creating an open face of the building process that then communicates in a way, so very John Calvinistic sort of way of thinking about architecture.
Great, thank you very much.